And we can see all this in the famous diagram known as Jacob's ladder, which is mentioned in the Torah. But we will see this connected to the Enneagram, a symbol brought to the West by Mr. Gurdjieff. Now, in this symbol, you'll see at least 4 sephirotic trees imbricated, one within the other. The first one represents the physical world, or the world of action. Therefore, it corresponds with our physical body. The soul embryo begins in our heart, so to say, in the Tiferet, and when it develops, it becomes a baby. It is born as a soul. We can also consider it as part of the astral body, which contains the seed of a greater, more subtle body, known as the mental higher body, in which we have the divine seed from the absolute, which is the world of emanation, the 4th that we see here, absolute. Atzilut comes from Etzel, which is close. So it's a close emanation. Those are the emanations that always come to our heart and our mind, but we have to listen to the voice of those emanations. When we listen to those emanations, they grow like a child within, a child that can stand up, not like a baby, but like a grown-up child that can walk consciously towards the Father. This is why the Master said, if you don't become like one of these little children that walk around me, you will not enter the kingdom of God, as it is translated. I wouldn't use that expression because he spoke in Aramaic and the connotations are different, but so you have an idea, the kingdom of God is the Malkut, which means kingdom, of Atzilut, the world of emanation. And this corresponds with the Tiferet of Beria, the kingdom which corresponds with the grown-up child, the world of the mind, the world of creation, as it is known in Kabbalah, even though I wouldn't use the word creation because we are not creating anything. We are developing, we are gestating. Actually, Beria comes from bara, and the word bar in Aramaic is son. You don't create a son, you gestate a son, having planted a seed. Even the word barley, the seed barley, has the root bar, because we are planting something divine, and this divine has to grow as an embryo, baby, child, and man. Those would be the 4 stages. Now, the man is very far from us. Even the grown-up child is still far, because we have to unite our human soul with the true self, the new Adam, as it was known. Because the old Adam was this world of Beria, but that soul of humanity fell during the Garden of Eden process. And now we have a new Adam, because Master Ishu brought a new genetics. And we are growing. Those of us who have been born from the water are heading to experiencing the process of fire purification, so we can merge with the Divine Master within. That takes place in this point, in my view. And we have to distinguish between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven. This is something I learned from the Master within, because in the New Testament you'll find the Master sometimes referring to the kingdom of God and others to the kingdom of heaven. Well, the kingdom of God is the Malkut of Atzilut, and the kingdom of heaven is the kingdom of God coming into ourselves, which is the Keter of Asia, or Tiferet of Yetzirah, the world of formation, which is the second, the baby. Once you have the baby, your astral body begins to be formed, and the kingdom of God comes close, because you have developed something that can receive finer vibrations. The kingdom of God is part of the divine absolute emanation that must come and grow within ourselves. And this becomes the kingdom of heaven, which is Shamayim in Hebrew. Shamayim is the union of Shin, fire, and Ma'im, because the divine emanations somehow burn the faults in us. And this is like using fire over water. It generates vapor, spirit. So we are born from the spirit when we really unite with our true self here in the Malkut of Atzilut, or the Tiferet of Beria. Now, I'd like to show this process in another diagram symbol known as the Enneagram, which was made popular by Mr. Gurdjieff when he brought it into the West many decades ago. And in this symbol, you can find exactly the same processes or aspects, because this is just the Sephirotic tree arranged in another way. I have proven this in several occasions. We see this further in the course Harmony Therapy. And you can actually express anything from the universe in this symbol. This has nothing to do with the Enneatypes as they are expressed today. The Enneatypes are just a teaching concerning different personalities. And this approach uses the Enneagram, but you cannot reduce the Enneagram to the Enneatype teachings, which are popular nowadays. I say this because some people told me they don't like the Enneagram because it classifies people in stereotypes, and that's not the case. The Enneagram is the union of the two primary laws of the universe, which are the law of 3 and the law of 7. The circle is the 0, is the body, the cosmic body of the universe. The 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1 is the heartbeat of the cosmos, the emotional part, so to say, and the 9, 3, 6 is the will, consciousness and conscience and individuality, personality develop from the interaction of will and consciousness with our psyche. Those would be the mental, psychological aspects that have been developed in an inner work. And obviously you can classify many processes, but the Enneagram is not just about making stereotypes or prototypes or types. It's about understanding how energy moves. Obviously, we can see there are different types of humans, and it's very useful, for instance, to see there are human beings which are very physical. We can classify them in this first point. They are very visual, very kinesthetic. Then we have people who are more emotional, more gregarious, as we say in Spanish. They like to be with others or depend on others. And they usually have more tendency to be helpful, as in the Enneatypes, the helper is placed here. But there are more aspects which would be important to see The third type of human being is very intellectual, very mental, more superficial in principle, and most human beings fall within the range of these three first categories. It doesn't mean they don't have these aspects. Obviously, everyone has emotions and a physical body and a mind, but it's not the same in everyone. Now, once you start working on yourself, developing a certain inner unity, differentiating the truth from the false, shedding light with consciousness and finding the voice of conscience, and making that stable with a magnetic center, then you become a type 4 human being. This is crossing the first threshold, because here we have an interval. 9 would correspond with the note do. Do, re, mi. Between mi and fa, there is always a missing semitone in music, which would correspond with the number 3. And this is an interval that you have to cross with an additional force. This is an extraordinary way of explaining this in terms of musical harmony, something explained by Mr. Gurdjieff. This was his geniality. He brought the teaching and explained it in musical terms, something which is very helpful, especially for those of us who are very passionate about music harmony, or armonía, as I say, because I don't like to use the expression harmony. It contains the word harm. Now, going back to the point number 4, we have to cross an even greater threshold. We have to experience the baptism of fire in order to have a certain unification within. When a person already has an astral body and has contact with the higher emotional center, that person is in constant rapport with the voice of conscience, the true self. And it's more difficult to fall back. It doesn't mean the person is not going to fall, but there we have the true I established. It's not just a person who is working, but it's something that gives the person more stability, a greater sense of divine unity. Now, when we reach the point 6, it means we have the higher mental body, which gives us access to the higher intellectual center, the higher mental center, in which there is a connection with the absolute in a greater sense. Here, the inner marriage is established in a greater sense, so it's much easier to transcend, to reach point 7, in which man is already immortal within the limits of the solar system, is not bound to any astral influence. As long as you remain in the 6th, 5th, 4th, and obviously these 3 points, you are subject to astral influences that can draw you back. You can fall. But when you reach the 7th stage, you somehow can cross the 3rd threshold and go into the pleroma. The pleroma is the absolute sphere. And there are further developments. The point number 8 is the point in which Master Ishu began his process. This was even taught by Mr. Gurdjieff. He said that when Ishu came, he was already a type 8 man, but he walked on earth. And I guess that when he merged with the Father of Lights, he became a type 9 man, which is the highest degree possible, something which is unbelievable. Even type number 7, 6, and even 5 are far from most of us. So we have to be humble and realize there are different stages. I'm not classifying people or saying this is a way of making stereotypes or categories about the human being. I'm just describing the process of growth. And we have to go through this process in order to develop our true potentialities. But for that, we have to cross the baptism of fire, in which all the false personalities are burned, and the guardians of the threshold, which are basically our false egos, are already dead. They cannot present any problem to us. So for now, I think it's enough information. These are just clues. I will develop this further if there is an interest. Tell me in the comments what you think about all this. And meanwhile, let's keep working, heading to establishing a conscious relationship with our true master, which belongs to the body of the collective master. The true master of life is the intelligence that comes from the divine absolute, and there is only one. But the body of expression is many, and there is a process that we have to go through in order to accomplish all the potentiality. And these are just clues, so let's keep ourselves in the ladder and reach the true way so we can accomplish our divine mission, something for which we must clean our mind and our heart, expression, the true love without limits, life without fragmentation, integral conscience, and deep, blissful serenity.